So now I'd like to introduce May Chen to you. May I know well and have worked with May for a long time. I was going to read her CV out, but we do have to get lunch in at some point. But I know May's going to talk to us about diversity, and I know I've been involved with May from the inception of the New Zealand Asian Leaders team, and I know how passionate May is about that. And I think, as I said in my part, the way we handle diversity and work out how to communicate, one of the things we're doing right now is Roger Jones is working with an American crowd who are able to pass data really fast and are enabling some of our transport applications at the client level and from a control room perspective to be in real time. One of the attributes they bring is the ability to handle 28 languages on the fly. So that could mean that in somebody from Beijing, it's in Mandarin. If they're from Spain, Spanish, Maori Tereo, and yet we're all looking at the same thing and it's live. And I think if we can find a way to bring our communities together so they're comfortable natively and encouraging that engagement, I think we'll go a long way. May.
Well, thank you very much, Jim, and I have worked with you for a very long time, and it's wonderful to see you in this strategic position. Can I also acknowledge John? John and I have worked together for a long time too, and he's made such a significant commitment to local government, particularly in New Zealand and in Auckland. I would never have worn this in Wellington. But what I'm wearing today, I think, is a signature of the smart city, the smart Auckland, smart citizens and smart infrastructure. And I think that I disagree with Jim, which doesn't happen very often, because he said, well, maybe we're not the people to deliver some of this. I think we are for this reason. When I talk about capabilities that are needed for smart citizens, I think that one of the key capabilities is leadership. And what I see around this room are the leaders, the tipping point people. This is an important audience. And I am grateful to have the opportunity to speak to you today about your very important role. I've just come from a CEO's breakfast where just about every CEO was talking about lack of skills to implement, to carry out what's happening in the city. This city is still popping. There's a lot going on. Construction is way up. We're talking about projections now of 50,000 more people working in the construction sector here. We're starting to see what's happening in Christchurch replicated here after the Christchurch earthquakes, when we had the rebuild, when we almost had a doubling of the construction sector in 2 years. There's just a lot happening. Despite Treasury's projections, migration doesn't seem to be slowing down, and it's not just people coming, it's people not leaving. And it's also important for us to change our mindsets, because sometimes people say, well, let's close the doors to people like them, because them is not like us. But who is us? Because I'm part of us. There's a lot of people who are now part of us and have been part of us for a long time. So even when I'm talking to CEOs who are talking to me about, they're thinking about export products and they're thinking about the staffing they need because they're thinking about export markets, I'm saying, well, what export market are you thinking about? I'm looking at the ethno-birds. I'm looking at our demographic population in Auckland. 50% of us are Maori, Pacifica and Asian. 1 in 3 will be Asian by 2021. I'm looking at 44% of Aucklanders not born here. I'm looking at 56% of the talent pool who are migrants and their New Zealand-born children. Who is them? When I look at the statistics about intermarriage, when I look at the number of mixed-race babies being born, I just think that we just need to change our complete mindset. So we can't deliver smart cities. Great theme, Jen. We can't deliver smart Auckland, smart infrastructure, actually, without those skills. We need those people. So I just think we need to change the debate, because a lot of people have been asking me to speak about immigration lately, and I always decline, because actually it's not so much about race. People want to make diversity a discussion about race. I think that as leaders, it's important for us to elevate the sophistication of our debate. It's actually about our economy. It's about whether or not we can create a city where people of all stripes, of all strides, of all backgrounds can achieve their full capacity. And we know that economic growth and development depends on the optimisation of the full potential of our people. We also know from all of the research, whether it's employees being drawn to a workplace or whether it's citizens or people in the global diaspora being drawn to cities, it's about the amount of diversity. All the research shows that people want to be employed in companies where there's a high level of diversity. Why? Well, because it's more interesting, it's more innovative, it's more exciting, and actually it's more productive. And there's a whole host of research, and the good thing about writing the super diversity stocktake, implications for business, government, and New Zealand, is that you don't have to do it again. So I've already done it, and I'm happy to say there's over 100,000 downloads. Look, this is an issue that's of interest to New Zealand. But what all of that shows you is that already in Auckland, we have this. We already have this thing which attracts so many people to wanting to live here. Now, we're not central government. We don't set the immigration policy. But what we do want to do is continue to attract the brightest and the best to our city. We want to become the Silicon Valley. We want to become London. Why did I come to live here from Wellington? I loved Wellington, aspects of Wellington. Maybe not the weather. And it seems now that cats are going to get a very hard time in Wellington, but as a person who owns a dog. But nevertheless, all I'm saying to you is that I was attracted to Auckland. And when I came finally to live here, because it made a lot of sense. But I have to say, I provided business justifications, but I was just drawn to the super diversity of this city. I just love its variety, its richness. I love the fact that it feels like London sometimes. I'm walking down Queen Street and no one's speaking much English. In fact, most of them look like me. And so we already know that they're attracted. But the question here is to elevate the debate, to get what Auckland needs to grow. This debate is not about race. Is not about ethnicity. Actually, it's about attracting the brightest and best and making sure that all Aucklanders who are attracted here can meet their full potential. And as we know, financial richness, financial capital requires social capital, which underlies it. And so when I read stats like recently came out from MBIE's done a recent study. It just makes me feel so sad. In fact, it made me feel pretty depressed. MBIE's just done a study which is called Community Perceptions of Migrants and Immigration. And it says, overall view of migrants. New Zealanders' views on migrants vary depending on nationality or type of migrant. New Zealanders are most likely to be positive about those from the UK and Australia. Surprisingly, they are least likely to be positive about migrants from India, China, and refugees. Then it says perceived negative impacts of migration. Between 2 and 10 and 3 and 10 agree that the more political power migrants obtain, the more difficult it is for New Zealanders already living here, that migrants take jobs away from New Zealanders, that immigration tends to threaten New Zealand culture, and that allowing migrant cultures to thrive means that New Zealand's culture is weakened. And then it talks about the extent to which New Zealanders are welcoming to migrants. 3 in 4 people feel New Zealand is welcoming to migrants. However, the proportion who feel it is welcoming has declined from 82% in 2011 to 79% in 2013 and 76% in 2015. So this study just came out. It's a 2016 study. Key groups that identify as migrant groups that are portrayed negatively in the media. Oh, what a surprise. Chinese, Muslims and Asians in general. So about then you start to feel pretty depressed. And the reason is because a lot of the sectors that are currently requiring skills are the IT sector, for example. And so Mitchell Pham is on the advisory board of New Zealand Asian Leaders. He is a boat person. His family, his family weren't able to come. They couldn't afford to put more than one person on the boat. It was him. He spent 2 years in an asylum centre and then he ended up in New Zealand. He was at the age of 12. He now runs Organ Software, and because they can't get enough IT people in New Zealand, they have a dual branch in Ho Chi Minh. So what they do is they get IT people who are Vietnamese trained to work on Kiwi company problems. And so similarly, when you look at Becca, and I know there are lots of Becca people here today, because Matthew Ensor emailed me and said you'd be here. Becca has been recruiting engineers from India. Why? Well, because there's a shortage in New Zealand, despite the fact that I hear this morning from the Vice-Chancellor of Auckland University that graduates in engineering are up 44%, and that in the last 10 years, of all of that period, we have now got the greatest change in what people are studying. I said to him, great, does that mean less people are studying law? And he said, no. So we've still got too many lawyers, but the good thing is we've now got more engineers. Now, once again, what I would feel concerned about is that we are not able to get the people who are best at the job because they just happen to be from countries that are not welcomed in this country. And I say that because I'm passionate for New Zealand, I'm passionate for Auckland. I want Auckland to be the most successful super diverse city in the world. I don't see why we can't be. We've got good roots. Why? Well, because of our Maori heritage. We've had to get our heads around Te Tiriti, o Waitangi. That's been good for us. We've had to learn biculturalism. That's made us more tolerant in terms of our cultural capability. We've had to develop some. And similarly, we're the biggest Pacific Coast city in the world, and so we've had to develop cultural capability for that reason. And I say that because when you look at the World Economic Forum most recent report on the 15 key skills that people need to succeed in the 21st century, and we are talking about smart Aucklanders, smart citizens, one of the 16, yes, there's literacy there, yes, there's numeracy there, but actually, one of the 15 or 16 key characteristics is cultural capability. It's the ability to work with people who are not like us. So in terms of the fundamental capabilities, which is really what I'm here to talk to you about today, the number one probably in my top 10, I think, of what we need to be smart citizens in Auckland to allow us to become the most successful super diverse city in the world, and no reason why we can't be. At the moment, we're number 4 in terms of the cities in the world that have the highest ratio of migrant population. We need to increase the amount of CQ, cultural capability, that our citizens have, all of our citizens. It's been interesting for me coming to Auckland. I cannot remember running for the Wellington office of Chen Palmer. Cultural capability sessions on how to deal with Asian clients, and particular Asian clients. And this arose because we've recently acquired a very, very big Asian client. And it's not Asian, of course, it's Chinese. There are 3.4 billion Asians. There's actually not a country called Asia. I just was remembering the time when I turned up at Harvard Law School and someone said, oh, you're from New Zealand, that's lovely. Did you drive? No, no, I didn't. So there isn't a place called Asia, and that's part of the problem, really. That not only do we need to broaden our cultural capability, but we also need to deepen our Asian capability. So with the Committee for Auckland, the Super Diversity Centre for Business, Government, has established a new tool. The tool measures cultural capability in companies. And of all of the companies that we've now gone in and applied the tool to and then done cultural CQ audits for, these are generally the findings. In terms of self-assessment, the self-assessment's generally about 2 to 3 out of 5. In terms of actual, it's more like 2 out of 5 than 3 out of 5. In terms of Te Reo Māori and tikanga, it's not so good. In terms of Asia capability, it's very low. But in terms of desire, people's desire to want to know more and become more culturally capable, they're really keen because they're now starting to understand that it's absolutely pivotal. Why? Well, so I was with the CEO of a major company yesterday. He said, well, we just got to get around this China capability. Why? Well, because it's his fastest growing customer base. So look across at your customers. Do you know what they need? Do you know what would be best in communicating with them? Look across at the people who are turning up at recruitment. I have recently done a piece of work for a major organisation who is finding it impossible to recruit in Auckland. And because they're one of the biggest employers in New Zealand and they have a very high rate of churn, they have to be able to recruit in Auckland. And they seem to have managed in the Maori market, and they're sort of doing all right in the Pacifica market, but they're just not getting anywhere in the Asian market. So I said, let me have a look at how you're recruiting them. I looked at what they were saying. No, you can't use that because it's not going to communicate the right things to aspiring Asian candidates who in terms of what's important to them. because they were using exactly the same stuff as for Maori and Pacifica candidates. Well, we do have a lot of similarities in our culture, as I always say, because I have a large number of Maori and Pacifica clients. But there are also a lot of dissimilarities in our culture and the importance. So it's not just about our customers and the fastest growing segments, because of course a lot of companies come to me and they say, well, we're losing market share. And I say, well, what is the predominant makeup of your current customer base? And they say, well, gee, we don't know. But if it's predominantly Anglo-Saxon, that is fabulous. But the average age of an Anglo-Saxon in New Zealand is 41 years of age. The average age of a Maori is 22, of a Pacifica is 21, of an Asian is 31. So actually all those people who are kind of going through school and getting jobs and having babies and buying houses and consuming are actually of a particular ethnicity. And so if you are not picking up or targeting those particular groups, then it's not surprising that you're losing market share. And some employers who've come to me have said, oh, well, actually, I don't really care. Maybe we just don't target them because we don't know how to go after them. And I say, well, that's fine. Don't go after them. Because if you don't, then what will happen is increasingly, as you will see, they're looking after themselves. So, you will see Indian travel agents and Chinese childcare centres where they all speak Mandarin as well as English. They just will service themselves. I always think about the supermarkets. I think about the fact that I'm now spending more and more of my weekends at Taiping than I ever did. And I think, boy, did they steal a march. I just want to go to one place, that's all. It's just that if I go to a regular supermarket, it doesn't provide everything I want. I haven't got time to go to two. So if Taiping now can provide all the other products, I'll just go to one place. So, at the end of the day, it's not personal, it's not ethnic, it's not about colour. It's simply about people's needs. So just as it will be the same when we come to the local government elections later in this year, smart citizens are going to say to themselves, they're not going to say, oh, do I know X or Y? Do I like X or Y? They're going to say, who's the best for me? Who's the best for me, for my family? How can I ensure that I continue to have a good living? So in terms of capabilities, I've got 10 that I wanted to talk about, and since I'm on number 1, I better shuffle. But I think the second thing that is really, really important is a super diversity framework. What I am discovering with almost all of the companies, local authorities and central government departments and public agencies that I'm working with is that they do not have a super diversity framework to think about the issues that are likely to come at them because of the fact that actually New Zealand's population is changing and it's changing really rapidly. And it's not just straightforward, oh yes, okay, 44% of the population wasn't born here in Auckland. It's the fact that we're making new New Zealanders whose culture we don't understand. It's evolving. I have a son. He is Eurasian. My husband's British. His family immigrated from Grimsby at the time that my family was immigrating from Taipei. So my son has grandparents that are born in Shetland, in Aberdeen, and in Taipei. And his culture is different. It's different. He's not Chinese, and he's not Scottish, and he's not English, and he's not altogether Kiwi. He is a mix of all of those. And I say this because, I sit on the BNZ board, and we do KYC. Now, that is not a new form of Kentucky Fried Chicken. That is know your customer. And the most important thing about understanding your customer is understanding their culture. Well, actually, the culture is evolving, and there is no city where it's evolving faster than Auckland. And I guess that, and I don't want to rush on from my super diversity framework, but I do want to capture that a third capability is just this ability to adapt. We are not going to make it in terms of smart cities, smart infrastructure, if we can't adapt. We are moving too slow. This housing issue that has grown and grown and grown has grown and grown and grown because we can't keep up. The pace at which our organisations operate can't keep up with the rate of change. It is quicker, it is faster all the time. And, it was interesting for me. I went to London to train in CQ, and then I went to Singapore to train in CQ. And when we met with the biggest companies in those two cities, the thing I marvelled, Jim, I said to myself, they're just moving a lot faster than we're moving here. And actually, as the fourth most high migrant city in the world, and with the gateway that we've got and the amount of growth that's happening here. We just need to adapt, and we need to adapt faster. And these people who are coming in and coming from different cultures and different pace of life help us with that adaptation. But if we don't adapt, we won't die, but we will in some respects. Okay. So just back to my super diversity framework. All I'm trying to say is that you need to think through the potential issues and challenges and the solutions and the opportunities from a super diversity lens. So even for local authorities, look, I know what Auckland Council's plan is. You want to get the number of people voting up. Well, that's great. Change your communication channels. Why? Well, because wherever you were communicating in the past was not reaching a lot of migrants. And since we've got 44% of them, and a lot of them don't come from English-speaking countries, we've got a big job. It's also important that if we are going to get great citizens, and this is number 4, we have to build civic sense in our citizens. Look, a lot of these people come from countries that don't have a democratic background or history. They don't understand about our constitutional system, let alone local government. Trying to explain local government to them and how it interrelates with central government is important. Why? Well, because we need to explain to them that it's worth voting. And it is worth voting. Some people fought pretty hard for it. And in this country, there's no bribery and there's no corruption. The votes will be counted and it will go according to a fair and transparent system. But I did a specific study last year looking at central and local government voting laws. And what I discovered is that there really is no thinking in there about what happens when a significant part of your population weren't born here and don't speak English as a first language. So when you look at the Stats New Zealand projections, May 2015, what it tells you is that by 2038, 51% of New Zealand's population will identify as Asian, 22%, Maori, 21%, Pacifica. Now, of course, 65% will continue to identify as Anglo-Saxon, and that's because of this mixed race thing and also because of the way people identify themselves. But what that tells me is that we have not got a super diversity framework around our policy making. And John Dragg, I was thinking even of civil defence, because I've been thinking a lot about health and safety lately. We've just put out this great health and safety law, but this health and safety law is very dependent on communication and on a particular culture where you don't have any issues dobbing people in. So you say, hey, my employer's not doing this or that. Well, that's great, but not if you come from an Asian culture, because that is not the cultural background that you were raised in. You do not do that. That is not a way to advancement, whereas New Zealanders can be quite outspoken in that way. So I worry about those health and safety laws, but I even think with civil defence, and I know that you are so across that and aware of that, but then you take that to all of the other issues that we need to think about, whether it's in local government or it's in central government, or even where it's in business. I was with a CEO the other day who said, we've just produced this great new product and we're taking it to Korea. And I said, why are you taking it to Korea? Why don't you sell it in New Zealand? I said, I told this person I spend probably about $50 a week on imported Asian snacks, and there is no New Zealand-made snack that I can eat. Now, I don't want to buy this imported stuff. I don't know what's in it. Probably not good things. And the person said to me, gee, I hadn't thought of that. You see, it's just a change of mindset about the sorts of issues, but also the sorts of opportunities that we need to be thinking about. And obviously, I think I'm up to point 5. Language and communication is a big part of that. We have 160 languages in Auckland. Auckland Council knows all about it. You get people rocking up to your counter every day who don't speak English. And Jim, as you said, we've got a lot of capacity now, capability to translate. And we know with the local government elections coming up, that will be the case. But we're a long way still. It's been interesting. I did an audit of government departments, for example. Many of them still are operating with no multi-language policy, and that's really difficult for citizens. It's also difficult for ratepayers. It's difficult not just about engaging them, consulting with them, but it's also really difficult if those people are going to have access to fundamental basic services. They don't understand what these services are, they don't know how to access them, and they can't get the assistance that they need. The next thing is the knowledge of the Treaty of Waitangi. I actually think that this is pretty important. The reason is because at the moment New Zealand is, I think, about number 4 on the World Peace Index. We do pretty well. And part of the reason I want to live in New Zealand, and I'm a committed, passionate New Zealander, is because it's nice here. We don't kill each other. And in general, I don't have to worry about getting beaten up when I walk down the street. I've had a few difficulties in Christchurch. I've had a few difficulties in Nelson. In general, in Auckland, people might yell a few things at me. They might shout at me when I'm in my car. But in general, I don't get assaulted. And so it is important that we continue to have all New Zealanders having a good understanding of the Treaty of Waitangi, having a good understanding of why Auckland Council is doing what it's doing with respect to the treaty, what an independent Māori statutory board is, and that there continue to be good economic opportunities between Māori and migrants as well. I think that knowledge is critical because many new migrants in particular say to me, oh, well, how come they get special treatment? And I say, well, I'm a constitutional lawyer, so if you've got an hour, I'll sit you down and I'll explain our history. It's really, really important, I think, because by 2038, the face of the treaty partner is going to look really different, right? Think about it. Face of the treaty partner, because you've got the Māori treaty partner and then you've got the Crown treaty partner. Well, the face of the Crown treaty partner is changing. And in some ethno-burbs that we've got in Auckland, you've got an electorate MP, and that electorate MP is going to be very sensitive to the needs of that particular ethno-burb, and 60% of the people there might come from a very, very different background. And so in terms of political power, in terms of numbers in Parliament, in terms of ratepayer base, this has an impact on political power. It has an impact, ultimately, maybe, on the way that resources are distributed. It's really, really important that there isn't divide and rule. It is important that the races get on. And see that, you know, it's not a case of, well, winner take all. It's not a zero-sum game. It's not your gain, my loss. It's about doing business together. And there's a sweet spot there. We've got a lot of new migrants coming in only because they're investor migrants. They're not able to come into the country unless they've got a lot of money to invest. They need to invest in something. We've got iwi, hapu with a lot of settlements. A lot of them got land, assets, but they need investment. There's a lot of synergies there, a lot of synergies. You know, this is very stereotypical, but we've got a lot of hapu and iwi groups with products. They need to take it to markets where they can get a higher price. You've got a lot of people coming in who have good channels back to market. And so the interrelationship with Māori is important, and making sure that smart citizens are properly educated about the treaty background, but also making sure that they understand New Zealand's very special relationship with the Pacifica regions. New Zealand has a very special history, legislation with a lot of these Pacifica countries. So once again, this needs to be not a situation where we get a bigger and bigger gap, and I worry about it. Why? Well, we have an immigration policy. Increasingly, people are saying, look, we need to be very selective about who we let in. So we're only letting people in who are high-skilled migrants. So, you know, they earn better living, and where do they tend to live? And we let them in if they have a lot of money to invest. So where do they tend to live? And so what I'm worried about is a growing disparity, and it's ethnic, because of the sorts of people you're letting in, and they're at the bigger end of town or the wealthier end of town, and you might find that, you know, gross generalisation, Māori and Pacifica, just that gap between those ethnic groups growing. I mean, you even take an issue like the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and once again, gross generalisation, but a lot of Asians were very supportive of that, and in general, Māori were less supportive of that. So I think we need to be across these issues because, as I say, I think that leadership is actually the most important capability that smart citizens need. It is leadership. Why? Because we do need to lift the quality of the debate, and we do need to focus on the facts, and we do need to have courage to talk about these issues. Not in cartoon terms, but with the depth and sophistication and complexity that they warrant. And we need to also ensure that we who are in leadership allow the super diverse into positions of leadership, which is why I'm very grateful to Jim and to John for letting me speak today, so that I have an ability to share my viewpoint on these issues. Because this viewpoint is going to become, I hope, increasingly prevalent. Why? Well, when you look at the leadership in 2038, half of it, or a quarter of it, it should look like me. In fact, a quarter of Auckland now are coloured women. And there's a good mix in this room, and that is good, because this is about the future leadership of a smart city. If I can just finish off, because I'd like to take 5 minutes of questions. There's so many good people in this room. I'd love some feedback on what I've said. I think we have to have, I don't know what number I'm up to, but the next number is unpredictability. Look, we couldn't predict and we can't predict. And in fact, adaptability becomes more important because we can't predict. So this capability to deal with unpredictability is actually incredibly important. And of course, our young people grow up in this environment. We oldies, less so. But we are all going to have to learn to live in an era of unpredictability, and then to do a really fast turnaround, because otherwise we will die and we will lose out. And we're not going to achieve the smart city. We want to be the smart infrastructure. The smart infrastructure has to get faster. Strategically, it's just too slow. We need to find a way of doing this. I can remember going to the expo in Shanghai back in 2009 and being told that they'd driven 9 subway lines in 12 months. Now, we don't have the benefit of communism to shift millions of people and make them go somewhere else, but it was mind-boggling to think they'd managed to achieve that. And then finally, I don't know if this is a capability, but it's certainly something that you need to factor in. It's probably an enabler, and therefore the capability to make the most of this opportunity. The future of travel is going to transform our lives. They're building vehicles now that can take you places at 4,000 kilometres an hour. This isn't Branson going to the moon. This is Chen being able to go to Tokyo for the weekend. So what does that mean? So I'm putting my super diversity framework in, and I'm thinking, wow, okay, this means people could live in one place and work in another place. It means we're going to be zotting around all over the place. It means open borders. It means increased intermarriage, increased mixed partnerships, increased mongrelization, increased cross-fertilisation. Just this ultra-fast broadband too, if we can find enough staff to actually roll this out. This ultra-fast broadband frees us all. We don't need to get on that motorway in the rain when there's been a crash and sit there trying not to fiddle with our iPhones because we'll get prosecuted. We can work from anywhere. We can be freed up to work from anywhere. And so just this ability, as Proust said, not new lands, but just new eyes. And so, once again, where does all of this take us? Well, it probably takes us back to leadership, which is what the unitary plan is all about. Boy, I've heard some great feedback on the unitary plan. Who'd have thought that if you worked on the unitary plan, you'd be hot, sexy, and cool? But everywhere I go, they're talking about it. And this doubling of the vision, Auckland Council sort of said, well, we think it'll free up about half land. And the unitary plan comes back and says, no, hell, let's double that. That vision is really our challenge. But that in itself is a show of leadership. And that leadership is critical, without which we are never, ever going to achieve the themes of this conference. And so the challenge, the biggest capability really, is in our own minds, to blow our minds and to think about what could be and then to achieve it. And that's actually about the calibre and the qualities of the people that become smart citizens in this city. We need to make sure that we are welcoming to people that can contribute the most to us, regardless of colour, race, ethnicity, or language. And I still confidently predict that in 5 years' time, the capability that will be most sought after by employers may be the very characteristics that are the subject of the greatest discrimination in the surveys that we are still recording at this point in time. That people were not born here, that they are of a different culture, that they have a different race, ethnicity, religion, and they don't speak the language. My family arrived in Christchurch in 1970. My father was a fantastic Olympics gymnastics coach. Canada tried to get him, but he was his mother's favourite, and she said no. Australia tried to get him to train their national gymnastics team, and she said no, but then she died. And then New Zealand said, well, why don't you come and train our gymnastics team? So his mother was not there to say no, and so we came. When I look at the number of points that my family would have scored on the point scale, I think the required number was 48. I think we got up to 22. You wouldn't have let us in. But I think about the passion that my family has for this country. The fact that there are now, there's mum and dad, there was 4 daughters, of which I am the youngest. When I think about the 9 grandchildren, when I think about our roots in this place and how we want to contribute to this country and have contributed, all in our own different ways, I think that it gives me a vision of what New Zealand could become in terms of smart citizens. I think we're a long way ahead. I am really, really optimistic. And I think that we have a really good platform. But I think we need now to move from a situation where it happened by chance to a situation where it happens by design, where we do provide the capabilities for all of our citizens, those who are Kiwis born here and those who are New Zealanders not born here, to really make this city into all those things we want it to be. It's that amalgam that's going to do it. And as you know, the sweet spot is often in the convergence. Thank you. One question?
You've got 5 minutes?
Yep, maybe.
Cool.
Any questions or comments?
Well, firstly, just to remind you all, there's the app. There are a couple on there. So, but are there any from the audience before I start there?
Don't be shy. I could cold call you.
Well, I'll
I know
ask you
quite a few people
the
on
first
the
one here. How can being smart encourage more people to vote unless the citizens see the council plays a role in enabling smart things?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And the difficulty is for a lot of people, it's not even about, Jim, them seeing the council do smart things. They just don't get it. It's very interesting, but it seems that it takes migrants about 4 election cycles to start voting. Why? Well, you know, they get here, they don't know anybody, and then they're trying to settle in, and it just takes them a long time. So all I'm saying is, once again, it happened by chance. We need to be more deliberate, and the deliberateness means that we need to say to ourselves, they need a bit of help. It took us a long time to vote. I still have to encourage my parents to vote every election. You know, they say, oh, well, dear, you know about this, but we don't, you know, and we don't know who the candidates are, and, you know, we don't know how to. And so it is hard. I mean, it's just odd that I am a Taiwanese migrant who came to New Zealand a long time ago, and I specialise in constitutional law. So I just happen to know a lot about voting systems, but most people don't. And, of course, you know, we have a Westminster system, but it's not even really Westminster. It's not even Washington. It's MMP, so it's kind of Washminster. It's tough. It's tough.
The next one, which seems to be quite popular, is with the rise of anti-immigration in Europe with Brexit and the US with Trump. How do we stop the same thing happening here, especially when these were or are driven by baseless data and actively excluding experts?
So, Jim, that's really the theme of today. It's all about leadership. It's all about the quality of debate. And that doesn't mean, you know, going on Radio Live and shouting fire in a crowded theatre. I just talk about the benefits and the contributions that that Asians make and immigrants can make to New Zealand. Look, it's about leadership, and I think it's a sweet spot for New Zealand. That's what I was trying to say to you about Auckland. Auckland has an advantage, and the advantage is that we're already really successful as a super diverse city. So when you've got a whole bunch of people feeling really unloved, it's really, really important for them to be attracted to a place where they feel that they will be accepted and not pushed around and not abused on the basis of their colour or their background, but they will be assessed as people. So I think we've got a big advantage already, and I think that leadership will take us there. That's where it will take us. Yeah.
The third one up there is how do we, sorry, I can't even see it now, yeah. How do we increase the CQ of our public servants sooner rather than later, our cultural
Yeah,
connection?
it's interesting because when I did the audit in Wellington, a lot of them said to me, oh yes, look, we're still trying to get our heads around women and the treaty, and we're getting around to ethnicity. But the good thing is that I did the audit, and look, no brickbats, only bouquets. Police were doing really good. And why is that? Oh, surprise, surprise. They're right at the coalface, along with Auckland Council, right? So you don't have a choice. It's every day. At number 2, I think Customs New Zealand came in second. And once again, if you put your super diversity hat on and think about all the issues that Customs deals with at the coalface, they're right there at the borders of New Zealand. And then number 3 was MB, along with the Ministry of Education. And once again, that's economic growth and that's education. If the schools aren't the coalface, who is? And it's the same with economic development. The predominant number of SMEs being created in New Zealand, a land of SMEs, are people who are coming in from outside, can't get a job, they set up a business. So I don't think it's something that's an optional. I think that Wellington is understanding that despite the fact that Wellington is still the second most super diverse, well, actually Christchurch probably is now, and Wellington's probably number 3, because of the number coming in for the Christchurch rebuild. The reality is it's not an optional extra. If the World Economic Forum has figured it out as one of the top 15 capabilities, I think it is incredibly important. Why? Because if the central government and local government are not making those not born here feel a part of our society, they will become ostracised, they will become alienated. We do not want them to get angry because we don't want them to feel that they're not part of the society, because then they might feel that they want to hurt the society, and we don't want that.